is up? It's the Pro Football Focus Fantasy Podcast. My name is Jeff Ratcliffe, and it's Wednesday, May 27th. Good news keeps it coming here. It does sound like things are going to happen for college football. We're hearing a lot of positive movement there. I feel like I open the show with this every day. Now, don't think that the NFL is going to get in before training camp. In fact, Jeremy Fowler over at ESPN did say as much that there's a lot of coaches throughout the league who don't expect to be in before training camp, but I do expect training camp to play out. So that is good. And hey, it's a good time of the year to maybe place a few wagers. I think there's a lot of edge that you can exploit at this time of year when we're talking about player prop bets. So as promised, we're going to break down some player prop bets. I went over to FanDuel's Sportsbook and found a few that I like. So we'll get to those in a few minutes. Do want to break down a couple news items before we get into that, though. And I want to kick things off here with one Lev Bell, he formerly known as He Who Shall Not Be Named. During the holdout, that's what we called him. But yes, that was a Harry Potter reference. All right, deal with it. Anyway, Le'Veon Bell, talking to the aforementioned Jeremy Fowler, said that he's really excited about this offensive line. And I think this is a story with the Jets that is going, slightly under the radar. We've paid attention to Denzel Mims, obviously, Brashad Perryman being added in the offseason, and even Frank Gore to some degree being added to this roster we've been paying attention to. But, this is a team that they drafted Mekhi Becton. I mean, that was a pretty darn good draft pick. You have Greg Van Roten, Connor McGovern, George Fant. I mean, this is almost a completely different offensive line, complete overhaul, which is a good thing, by the way, because last year really, with Le'Veon Bell, I think that we're, as fantasy players, we're more prone to place the blame on the player as opposed to the overall situation. Todd Gurley, great example last year as well. That really wasn't Todd Gurley. That was a lot of situation. It was an offensive line that could not generate any space for him whatsoever. And Le'Veon Bell was in a very similar situation last year. In terms of yards before contact per attempt, that's an offensive line metric for me. It's not a perfect offensive line metric, let's be clear on that. But really what we're talking about in most instances is, that a better offensive line in terms of run blocking is going to generate more space for those running backs. Now, the running back is still a part of the equation. If the running back isn't executing the play, then obviously it's a bit on the running back. Of course, having more space is going to help them execute the play, though, as well. So anyway, last year, on a per-play basis, the New York Jets were bottom dwellers in yards before contact per attempt, 0.7. Not even a full yard before contact per attempt for the New York Jets. Now, of course, they weren't that great after contact as well, 2.5 after contact, but that is ugly, 0.7. So with Le'Veon Bell, the efficiency was dreadful last year. This year, we could see an uptick in efficiency. Now, I don't expect him to be off the charts, and I don't expect him to be anything more than, really, again, you draft him as an RB2. It isn't sexy, but it is what it is, and you're probably going to get him at a value because it isn't sexy, but we should see an increase in efficiency. Now, and of course, I don't think we can go much lower than last year. Frank Gore is obviously a concern from a volume standpoint because a big part of the appeal of Lev Bell is the potential volume, and obviously you take some of that off of Bell's plate. But still, the more I look at that offensive line, the more encouraged I am about the situation there for Le'Veon Bell. All right, so we filled our Le'Veon Bell quota for the week. I feel like I do talk about him every week. I know. But something I wanted to point out before I get into these player prop bets that a listener pointed out to me, and I find this is pretty interesting, and I guess maybe as a precursor. So if you can exploit rules, if you can exploit, anything in your league, if you can exploit it without breaking the rules of your league, then do so. I've had people ask me these sorts of questions. For example, somebody at the very, in week 16 heading into Monday Night Football, was winning, couldn't possibly lose, asked me, is it wrong for me to bench my team defense? Because the defense was going, whatever it was, whatever team it was. And I asked, is it against the rules to not field a full roster in your league? And he said, no, it's not against the rules. And I said, well, okay, then all's fair. Honestly, all's fair. If there's rules to prohibit it, then yeah, don't do it. But if you can exploit, if you can take an angle, if you can win the game, then win the game. And so that brings me to this point right here. And I don't even know if there's an angle here, but I just found this really fascinating. And I don't know if this is a mistake, by the way, but currently at ESPN, Taysom Hill is listed as a tight end. I have no idea why, and I triple-checked this thing. No idea why. I don't really think there's an edge here, but sometimes positional designations can give you an edge. So, yeah, I figured I'd just throw that out there. You do with that whatever you want to do with that. But, yes, he is currently listed as a tight end at ESPN in their fantasy product. I mean, Taysom Hill really probably should be designated only as a quarterback, but I don't know. Whatever. Why I also bring that up, though, is I wanted to talk briefly about Antonio Gibson, because this could actually be a legitimate hack, if you will, position hack, that we saw happen a few years ago in Green Bay as well. It happened with Ty Montgomery. Ty Montgomery was designated as a wide receiver, but because of injuries, etc., the Packers had to rely on him as a running back. And he was a hybrid player coming out of college anyway. So, and exactly, very similar to what we think of Antonio Gibson. Hybrid player, versatile skill set. I am hoping that we see a wide receiver label or designation for Antonio Gibson, because if that happens, and he's heavily used because there's already chatter that they're going to try and get the ball in his hands, you can be looking at a wide receiver who sees, let's say he has 5 to 8 carries and, 3 or 4 targets. So a guy who could easily have 10 touches a game as a wideout, that becomes very valuable in deeper leagues. Now, again, he's not going to be in a situation where, he's a wide receiver, but he's getting 15 to 20 carries a game. But still, deeper leagues, extra touches, more value. I will say, though, that currently at ESPN, Antonio Gibson is classified as a running back. I don't have all of the positional designations throughout the industry, but it is weird because he was drafted, labeled as a wide receiver. He's labeled as a wide receiver in certain places throughout the industry, including Roto World has him as a wide receiver, but ESPN gave him a running back designation. So we'll see, but if you can hack your league, then hack your league. If it's not in the rules that you can't do it, all is fair in fantasy football. All right, so let's pivot over to these player prop bets. Season-long player prop bets went through quarterbacks, running backs, and then receiving props for wide receivers and tight ends. And so here are some that stand out to me. Like I said, these are over at FanDuel right now. Let's talk about Joe Burrow. 2020-2021 regular season total passing yards. And the stipulation, of course, is that it has to be a full 16-game regular season. Cannot be a shortened season for these bets to stick. So Burrow's line right now is 3,800 and a half passing yards. It's minus 112 on either side. And for me, I am playing an under. Now, I will say I like Joe Burrow. In fact, really think that he's going to be something in this league. However, for a rookie quarterback to put up big-time numbers, and you're talking, you're pushing 4,000 yards with this line. I mean, you're not even a full game away from it at this point in terms of production to get to that 4,000-yard plateau. And we have seen some rookies top it. Jameis topped it. Cam Newton topped 4,000 yards in his rookie year. Of course, Andrew Luck's probably like the quintessential hit the ground running rookie. 4,374 passing yards in his rookie year. That's freaking awesome. But even you look at some of the all-time greats, like Peyton Manning, he was under this line. Now, barely, but he was under. So what do you think of Burrow? And I know I comped Burrow to Andrew Luck. I just don't see him stepping in and popping off for 3,900, 4,000 yards. I think at 3,700. If you said the line was 100 yards less, 3,700 and a half yard, I would lay off of it, but I am going to play the under. In fact, I already did play the under on this one. Tom Brady. That's a fun topic. Tom Brady, over under, 4,224 and a half yards. Tom Brady is very fascinating. And I'll tell you what, every time I run projections for Tom Brady, he comes in not just over this, but way over this. Like, we have a big edge on the over. Now, I did talk about the PFF projections. Remember, PFF projections are a combination of the fantasy and data science teams. So we have all kinds of different inputs going into that. And the initial run had Brady over 5,000 yards. Now, that has throttled back to 4,800 yard range, but wow, 600 yard buffer on that. My personal projections, which I also run to help my rankings out, I still have him at 4,600 yards. So basically a 400-yard buffer. For me, this is an easy over. It's minus 112 on either side. There are a few where the juice shifts a little, but with these, you're not really worried about the odds per se. You're just really worried about the line. The other one is over under 29 and a half passing touchdowns, and I think this is one of those correlation plays. Like, if you're going to play the over on the yards, then you might as well play the over on the touchdowns as well. 29 and a half is a pretty big number. To pass for 30 touchdowns, I know we're sort of spoiled sometimes by the pass-happy NFL, but even so, 30 touchdown passes, even in today's NFL, is nothing to bat an eyelash at. I mean, you think about it, like, how many players are going to top 30 touchdown passes in a given season? It's not going to be 10. I mean, last year, how many was it? It was 4. It was Lamar at 36, Jameis at 33, Russ at 31, and Dak at 30. That's it. 4 guys. So it's nothing to bat an eyelash at. However, if you consider, I mean, Lamar was off the charts efficient, but Jameis, high yardage, high touchdown production. Dak, high yardage, high touchdown production. So there is a correlation between those two. Guys who tend to rack up more yards tend to rack up more touchdowns. Just straightforward. Don't even have to show you the math on that one. It's straightforward. So I'm going to play that one too. Mahomes, passing touchdowns. 35 and a half, minus 112 on either side. I'm actually going to play the under here, not because I don't believe in Mahomes, not because I don't love Mahomes. Mahomes is a freaking rock star. He is a rock star. But 35 and a half is a big line. That is a really big line. And so we have to sometimes think to the psychology of this stuff, right? There is embedded psychology in sports betting. When you think about who the average bettor tends to place their money on in, against the spread, they tend to bet on favorites. Over-unders, they tend to bet over. So if you have folks who tend to bet over, you can set that over higher. You can set that line higher than you ordinarily would if, let's say, it was more of a 50-50 thing where people didn't necessarily tend to bet on one side or the other. Does that make sense? So these lines can be a little bit higher, and even so, people are going to bet the over. I mean, in a perfect world, I think the perfect line for Mahomes here isn't 35 and a half. I think it's actually 34 and a half, but we could have some of that embedded psychology playing out here. Certainly could. Right now, I'm well under. I mean, right now I have him at 33 and a half passing touchdowns. Just under 33 and a half, 33.4. So that's a massive number. And I'm still getting, I'm still on the under, by 2 touchdowns. So I'm going to go after that one. Really, I think there's a little bit of psychology being played out in that line, and I'm going to try to exploit that. You have to keep that in mind. You can exploit these sorts of things. And by the way, only Lamar was over that line last year. And we saw, it takes a special season to top that, to throw that many touchdown passes. Speaking of special seasons, Christian McCaffrey had one last year. 2020-2021 regular season total rushing and receiving yards. So they don't have just rushing yard props up there, so it's a combined. Here you go. Over under 2,049.5, minus 112 on either side. Wow. That is a big number right there. And yes, he was way over it last year. 2,392 yards. Yes, way over. But that was the third most all time. It was a historic season. When we look back through the last decade, this number here, 2,049.5, has only been topped 5 times in the last decade. And nobody did it twice. McCaffrey's a special player. This line is very high, though. And I am taking that under with confidence, baby. With confidence. Let's talk about Miles Sanders. 1424.5. This line is set before the Eagles address running back. Because I do still fully expect him. It's not going to be Carlos Hyde at this point. And I don't know if it's going to be Devonta Freeman. But I do expect them to bring somebody else in. And this could be one of those things, too, where they wait. There could be veterans who are cut along the way. Or, there could be other situations out there. So we'll see. And I wouldn't even put it past Howie Roseman to get a trade done. Because we know he likes to do that. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I am very confident the Eagles are going to bring in another back. And in which case, like right now, this line's good. I wouldn't actually touch this line if I thought Miles Sanders was going to, be in the lead back role with little competition, like the current depth chart. I wouldn't touch this line with 10-foot pole. However, given that thought process, I want to get out ahead of any move the Eagles make. I am going to play the under on that one. Alvin Kamara, there's also rushing and receiving props for touchdowns. So the combined rushing and receiving touchdowns for running backs. The line, 10.5. But the interesting thing is, on the over, plus 102. And then it's juiced minus 130 on the under. I'm taking the over there. I know that people are going to look at last year's touchdown production from Alvin Kamara and really be tempted to hammer that under. I'm the other way around. I think we're going to see him go off this year. Every time I run projections, the model just loves him and has him going over. And in some instances, I've run these numbers in a variety of times over the last couple months. In some instances, he's been way over this number. It's a little bit closer now, but that's with the new schedule out, kind of helps solidify the numbers. But he's still. It's a healthy margin over for Alvin Kamara. So I'm going to take the over there. Right now at PFF, we actually have him with 15.9 rushing, combined rushing and receiving touchdowns. He would go over on just the rushing touchdowns. We got him at 12. That's healthy. That is healthy right there. I like it. Let's move on to receivers. So tight ends and wideouts. Don't have a ton here, but a couple interesting ones. So Rob Gronkowski, total receiving yards, over under 599.5. It's minus 112 on either side. I'm actually going over on this one. I think we're underestimating Gronk. I'm not saying Gronk's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver or anything like that, but he could be a 700-yard receiver, 650. Be way over on this one. I think 700. If you said the line was 699.5, I'd stay off of it. Not playing that one. But 599.5, I'm going over for Gronkowski. Hey, this team's going to use a lot of 12 personnel. We know Brady has a great connection with Gronk. Yes, Mike Evans is going to get his. Yes, Chris Godwin's going to get his. This is part of the reason why I'm taking that over on Brady, by the way. But Gronk is still going to be an integral part here. And you can have, if you pass for 4,500 yards, you can have 2,000-yard receivers and a tight end who goes for 700 and then sprinkle everybody else in. And that's totally doable. From a math standpoint, totally doable. Julio Jones, This one's interesting. We talked about Julio yesterday on the pod, and I do think he's being slightly undervalued because I do think he's a first-round talent in fantasy drafts this year. However, the line is very healthy. 13.49.5 for Julio Jones. That's a big, big, big number right there that I am tempted to play the under because I do think this is another example of the psychology that I just talked about. People love playing overs, so let's set the line even higher because of that fact. It's not a knock on Julio, too. Like, he could still have 1,300 yards, have a pretty freaking awesome season, and the under pays out. So I'm going to bet the under there. All right, we'll wrap it up with two rookies here, CeeDee and Jeudy. We have the receiving yards for both of them. CeeDee Lamb, 749.5. Jeudy, 774.5. Minus 112 on either side for both of those. And if you've listened to me throughout the process since the draft, you probably know where I'm going here. It's easy unders for me on both. And it's not a knock on either of these players, so don't come at me, Cowboys fans. Don't come at me, Broncos fans. It's not a knock on them. It's a situational thing. I do think that out of the gate, CeeDee Lamb is going to be the number 3. Now, will he be the number 3 in 2021? Or, does he, towards the end of the season, blow by Michael Gallup? I can't answer that question right now. That being said, only one football there, and I just don't see him approaching 750 receiving yards. I think it's probably more like 700. Again, you set this line 50 yards lower, I stay away. But at this point, at 749.5, I'm going to hit that under. As for Jeudy, a lot less confident in the offense. I love what the Broncos did this offseason. And, kudos to them, especially in the draft. Loved their draft. But I don't love Drew Lock. I could grow to love Drew Lock. Who knows? But I don't love him right now. He's unproven. That's all it is. I don't hate him. I'm indifferent for Drew Lock. But the problem, of course, is Sutton's going to get his. We know that. Fant is going to get his. So where does Jeudy fit in? Hamler's also in the mix. And let's not forget, we have guys out of the backfield who can catch the ball. Mel Gordon can catch the football. Even the other two, Lindsey and Freeman can catch the football. So in this instance, it's sort of the opposite of Brady. I mean, how confident are we in Drew Lock throwing for more than 3,500 yards? Probably not that confident. So now, can you sustain a 1,000-yard receiver in Sutton, a 600-700-yard tight end, hopefully, maybe more like a 550-yard tight end, and then another 770. This is 775. I think, for me with Jeudy, you put this 50 yards lower, I still probably take it. You put it 75 yards lower, and then, again, that 700 mark for both these guys, it would be the point where I'd be like, now I'm passing. So less confident in the situation, the overall situation for Jerry Jeudy, even though he's in a better spot to kind of hit the ground running in the target pecking order. Not a great situation, obviously, with an unproven quarterback. Dak is obviously much more proven than Drew Lock. So, couple quick player prop bets for you there. This is a great time of year to take advantage of this stuff, and especially as people are starting to generate more interest, but they haven't really hammered these lines just yet. So, I would go after these things and shop around. See what other lines are out there as well. All right, it's going to wrap it up for today. So you can, of course, follow along with me on social media at Jeff Ratcliffe on Twitter and Instagram, #RatPack. And I'll catch you on the flip side for another edition of the pod. For PFF, I'm Jeff Ratcliffe, and I'm out of here.